a wide range of areas to talk about. Any questions from the audience? Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Mm-hmm. To the best of my knowledge, there is no culture without, some sort of storytelling. And whether they use the drum or what is the name of that instrument in Kazakhstan, though? Dombra, or there are different instrumentations to highlight the narrative expertises, and yes, but then do we want to find? I mean, are there any cultures that have something stylistically or acoustically similar to pansori? I haven't yet, found it. But then again, my scope is, not as big as the whole globe.
Then why do you think we had that Korean culture? How come we developed that?
What in Korea?
Why did you develop it in Korea?
Oh, why did I develop? Why was pansori developed in Korea?
Right. Not the other cultures don't have it.
Uh-huh.
Why do you think we had it?
Yeah, no. The cultures have their storytelling. And why was pansori developed in Korea, not in Japan or in China? Because pansori is Korean. Why else? Why was kimchi developed in Korea? Because kimchi is, it has the Korean flavor. It reflects what Koreans want.
There is, of course, a genre of epic, heroic poetry, which is known throughout the world, starting with, say, Homer and the Iliad and Odyssey. But these days, there's still a lot around. You can go to, say, Kyrgyzstan, where I'm just writing a book on this with a very fine singer, Sapabek Kazmabetov, where the Manas is said to be the longest epic in the world. So if you talk to Soviet or Kyrgyz scholars, they'll tell you it has sort of 550,000 verse lines. It's huge, so if you performed it in its entirety, it would probably go on for about 20 days or something silly. But that's a very simple musical structure based on formulas and things. Up in Sakha, Yakutia, Olonho is one of the epic traditions we hardly know in the West, which actually has a lot of similarities in terms of the musical structures and the different stories to pansori. And you can go to many other places, the Ramayana in India, and many other traditions. There's even traditions. The Mukam is slightly different, but even in Africa, there are traditions amongst, say, the Malians, across into Kenya and Sudan, yes. So epics are well known. I think in Korea, the combination of music and text is quite remarkable. And you don't find that particular combination in most of the other epic traditions.
Olonho is also in Siberia,
Yeah.
so which also shares some similar traits, I guess, with the Korean. Yeah.
I think when the Professor Park saying that it's the only Korean tradition, I think she meant a musical tradition, musical style, perhaps. My experience in visiting India is there is the form similar to pansori by the one singer, or sometimes even they develop this further as a group performance. It's called Gudiyanta. They are using mudra. I mean, not the singing like this, but they are using the hand, the gesture, telling the story, the story singing actually. And then also they're accompanied by drummer, but not only one single drummer, sometimes a few drummers. So many countries in Asia, they developed a certain style, and which could be related to the one solo performer. But in my experience in India was the more bigger form. Yeah.
Actually, that was an excellent question, and I was going to direct a question to Professor Howard, actually, because you mentioned that the Sanjo playing has its roots, some of the performance in shaman tradition because of the roots of that. And can you trace pansori to any type of folk traditions or rituals?
That's $1 million question as well. The origins of many musical genres are shrouded in mystery. We just don't know. So we know that many of the pansori singers may have connections back to shamanism. And in the recent past, if you watched shaman rituals in the southwest of Korea, often when the shaman stopped singing, some of the musicians who were accompanying her kept people entertained by singing excerpts of pansori. And we know that many of the pansori singers 200 years ago were in groups, associations, that link very closely to shaman associations at the time. Some of the regulations that survive suggest an overlap. We don't actually know what that overlap was, though.
Yeah, if I may say. The pansori, and then I'm also kind of going back to your question. You know, why pansori and not different kind of style? The 전라도, the 육자배기, it has the same the rhythmic and very similar melodic structure, and also the 시kin꽃 or other kind of shaman. The 전라도 shaman narrative, shaman narratives, 무가 that talks about the 재성님 and other, the deities, which is pansori. That is pansori, and I think that's where the pansori as a secular form of narrative entertainment came out. I mean, no question.
And we also have. Well, Shimjonga, that story is associated by many people with shamanism and with a real person who was lamenting the loss of her family, and it's related to a shaman ritual there. Again, on the East Coast, amongst the Tonghean Pyeolshinkut people, so the shaman fraternity there, they do have rituals which are based on pansori, or very closely based on the stories of pansori. But it's still mysterious, the connections there.
Thank you. We have great expertise in this area. Elder Nam.
Well, Sri, oh, you did marvelous job. We really impressed. We appreciate very much for your wonderful presentation. I have one question to Professor Howard. As far as I know, up until now, Kuga, pansori, whatsoever, were all transferred from one generation to next generation through practice, through mouth. So when did the music note on 5 lines did they start put on the paper? In general.
Okay, that's a good question, and it's fairly easy to answer. The 1960s, with some exceptions. So actually it's very, very interesting, and very few people know this. There are pansori notations in Korean-style notation, Chongambo. And they were devised by Kim Ki-soo, who was a composer and a scholar, who taught, he was the director of the school you went to. But he first did staff notations. So there were no real notations for pansori. And if you went to your pansori lesson in the 1950s, probably into the 60s, with a traditional singer, and you wrote something down, you'd be told off. You didn't. You learned orally by rote. You weren't supposed to use any notes, whether it was music or just writing. But it all changed around 1960, partly with universities, but it's also part of Korea deciding to modernize and seeing in modernization of its music the need to have some notations and some recordings in notation. So Kim Ki-soo is one of the great scholars and musicians who was responsible for setting that up.
Yes, when I was in high school, that was about time 1960 through the 70s. They start to making notation, and I remember my teacher said that in order to have Korean music known to Westerner, you will have to have a Western notation. That was their mission. And then, and also a second reason is that the oral tradition, it'll disappear by the time he died. Who's going to take care of this? So we have to write down the notation. So there's two reasons that everybody was writing a notation. And I remember my teacher was working very hard to making Komungo notation from the old notation, Korean style notation, to Western notation. That was all done by 1970s or something like that. Yeah, there was incredible political mission at that time. Yeah.
But I'd like to ask, did your teacher used to have notes in front of you?
You mean the staff notation?
Yeah, your
We
Pansori
never
teacher.
had that. And as a matter of fact, you know, in the Pansori department in the Korea, one of the requirements, the major requirement for master's degree program, is the putting one narrative into Western staff notation. That is, you know, is an interesting intellectual exercise, but nobody uses that. Yeah, and it really, nobody uses that because I guess if you are trying to read from the notation, probably Pansori would not sound like it. You know, somewhere you will have to really make a, you know, very cut, very fragmented. But then they keep doing it, I guess maybe for future, some future benefit. You know. And again, today we have now recording the technology. So in a sense, you know, the learners heavily rely on the recording, CD and tape, and today they have like iPads.
Well, from today.
iPods.
Well, I know it's getting late, but we just want anyone to, if anyone has any questions for our esteemed panel here. Yes, Professor.
There, For my, that was I've been working on this over 10 years, developing this instrument. I did not mean to develop original instruments I didn't mean to upgrade this instrument into electric Komungo. In my mind, I have two toys, Komungo, which is beautiful as it is, and then second instrument, which I can create something new music with the computer and the media, which is available at this moment when I'm live in 21st century production. So this is two different toys. And you cannot say that I developed Korea original instruments to the electric Komungo. I never say that. In Korean, and sometimes Korean people saying that 악기 개량. They think that I did 악기 개량. It's not 개량, 악기 변경. That's what I always say. I always make sure that it's 악기 변경. It's not 개량.
And what's the difference between the two words?
변경 is that you making alternative to making second toys. 개량 is you making better somehow. You making better than original one. Yeah.
That Kenyang concept is really weird because it means improved. So you improve an instrument essentially to make it sound more like a Western instrument. Worrying.
Here.
Well, should we yes, follow up?
Mhm. Well, as a composer, as an artist, I am always, my job is creating new. There's always somebody doing something new in the period. The music you are hearing, traditional music, it's not the fourth century, from the 4th century. Music always evolved over the thousand years. What you hear as a traditional music is maybe 19th century. Yeah. So you can say that you are not doing 4th century music. It's a very, very difficult question, and I'm living in this particular time. And so as an artist, I'm creating new music on this instrument. I cannot please everybody, that's pretty sure. And then somebody will connect with my music for whatever reason, for my achievement or musically, and that's the gratitude I have to go through. If you meet the artist, you know that they cannot please everybody. They know that, but they do believe in what they are doing, and they try to do their best in their life, and that's all we can do.
Again, to add to that, if you look at the earliest records of something like a Kumungo, Jinhee is saying 4th century, well, the only records we've got are tomb paintings of an instrument being played like this, which is very different to the instrument we've got now. And we don't know any of the repertory for that. We don't actually know when it moved from there to here. And we don't know the true sort of evolution of the instrument or of its music. By the 15th century, we've got a very good idea. By the first sort of real treatise of music. Again, not a good idea of the music played on it, but the instrument and its construction and its tuning. It's only much more recently that we really know what we're talking about in terms of the sound and everything. Even the score books that survive for the Kumungo, which start in, say, the 16th century, the Kumhap, all the way through to the 19th century, when you interpret the music that's written there, you have to interpret it. So it's very, very difficult to say we're playing it now as we were in the past. So I think music does evolve and instruments evolve.
I think we'll take one last question for our esteemed panel of questions. Okay, well, I guess no other questions. Well, we will wrap it up. Thank you very much, and let's give applause to our panel. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Jinhee.